nonsense. Now, who did you guys probably learn was the person to figure out that the Earth was round? Oh, somebody's getting a little bit glitchy. Am I a little glitchy for you guys? Am I dropping frames again? Or am I okay? Let me quick vote on that. We dropping frames? Okay, looks like we're doing all right. If you are getting a little bit of a bad connection, don't worry. Anything you miss, you should be able to see in the replays. Okay? All right. So, I asked a question before. I'll just go ahead and give the answer to it. You probably learned that Christopher Columbus was the one to discover that the Earth was round, right? And the whole story of Christopher Columbus was that he lived in Europe, and he wanted to go to India. And up until that point, everybody went to India either over land or by traveling around Africa on a boat, and it took a long time. So Christopher Columbus decided that he wanted to go from Europe to India by going around the Earth. And you probably learned that in that story that everybody else thought the world was flat and told him, don't do that, because if the world is flat and you go in that direction, what did everybody tell Christopher Columbus would happen to him? What did you learn everybody told Christopher Columbus? If the Earth is flat and you try to go across the Atlantic Ocean to get to India, what's going to happen to you? Yeah, fall off, right? You would fall off. And the end of this story was, everybody tried to tell Christopher Columbus was wrong. Everybody tried to tell him, you're a moron. You're going to fall off the Earth. And then he, with his convictions, was able to stick to his guts and go across and go around the Earth. And eventually he ran into a different place that Europeans didn't know about, right? All of that story, everything we just said, that's BS. That is a BS story. All of that we just said, that did not happen. That didn't happen. That didn't happen that way. That's not what happened. You were taught wrong here, okay? So let me explain. Christopher Columbus. Why did everybody think he was a moron? Why did everybody think Christopher Columbus was a moron? It was because Christopher Columbus was a moron. He was. Screw Christopher Columbus, okay? Christopher Columbus was totally a moron. He was one of the luckiest morons in history, okay? So, let me explain. Check this out. So, Christopher Columbus... yes, screw Christopher Columbus. You can quote me on that one, okay? Anyway, Christopher Columbus, he did want to go across the Atlantic Ocean from Europe to get to India. But it wasn't that everybody else thought the world was flat. At that point, we had known that the Earth was round since ancient Greek times. That was over 1,000 years before Christopher Columbus was born. And the people he was arguing with knew that the Earth was round, and it was just the general knowledge at the time, okay? He was not the one to be like, the Earth is round, I will prove everyone wrong. No. So here's the problem. Remember, Europeans didn't know about North and South America at that point. So they thought that it was just ocean all the way from Europe all the way around to Asia, okay? And eventually India. So nobody thought it was impossible to go across that ocean and get to India. But remember, the ancient Greeks had also figured out how big the Earth was. So they knew it was a very long journey to get to India going in that direction. And because they didn't know about North and South America in Europe, that means that entire journey was by boat, okay? And here's the thing. If you're going to go by boat and you're not going to see land for a long time, what are you going to need to bring in that boat? What needs to come on that boat with your people? What do you need to bring with you? Yeah. Yeah, you need a lot of water, you need a lot of food, and all kinds of supplies. And here's the problem. Back then, boats were only made out of wood. Okay? Boats were only made out of wood. So, if you were going to make a bigger boat, it had to still be made out of wood. And it turns out there's a maximum size you could make a boat with the current technology of the time. And it turned out that the maximum size of boats you would need, or that you could make, would not be able to carry enough food and water for the crew to make it all the way across. In fact, you would only be able to bring half the amount of food you would need to get all the way from India, all the way to India from Europe, across all ocean, right? And so they argued, yeah, a boat could eventually go across that ocean, but any people on that boat are going to be dead people, right? Halfway across, you'd run out of food and you'd die, okay? So, what did Christopher Columbus say to this? He said, nah, man, it's okay. I'm going to make it. You say I need this much food, but I'm only going to be able to bring half the food I need. That's okay, because I say that every single person about who's talked about the Earth for over 1,000 years now is wrong about the size of the Earth. Christopher Columbus said the Earth is half the size that you guys are saying. Okay? And here's the important thing. The ancient Greeks had correctly figured out the size of the Earth. And Christopher Columbus was trying to claim that he would only need half the food because the Earth was half the size. Okay? And he was wrong. He was wrong about that, and everybody knew he was wrong, and he somehow convinced some rich patrons to fund him anyway. And so he went off on a trip, and everyone said, LOL, you're not gonna make it. We'll look for your dead body in India, okay? Or that's how this is gonna work, okay? And in fact, here we go. If you actually look at the journals of the people who went with Christopher Columbus, and where you can see what was happening on this trip, guess what happened? Guess what happened on those boats? You probably can see where this is going. What happened on these boats? They ran out of food. They ran out of food on these boats, okay? There's a lot of problems on these boats, but one of the most important one for this story is that they ran out of food. And you can imagine, everybody was kind of pissed off. When you run out of food and your captain told you were going to be able to make it to India and you're dying now, you don't get too happy, right? And so if you actually read those journals, the crew was actually planning on killing Christopher Columbus. They were planning a mutiny. They were going to throw him off the boat, okay? And the reason being, we all know we're going to die. We know we're going to die. But before I die, I want to see that guy die first, right? Christopher Columbus, I want to watch him die. He did this to me. Let's throw him overboard, okay? So... And right about that time, they had actually planned on doing, right about that time, they actually ran into the Caribbean islands, okay? Which, if you look at it, the North and South America mark a little bit less than halfway of the journey from Europe to India. So if the North and South America had not been there, Christopher Columbus and his crew would have just died at sea, and we would never learn about them, okay? So, Christopher Columbus. Lucky moron. Screw Christopher Columbus. I'm sorry. I remember learning about him in school. It was one of the big stories. I was into it. When I learned the real stuff, I feel like he had personally wronged me as well, okay? And, take his day away. There's actually movements to take his day away. And this is ignoring all of the stuff that, went down when they got there. Also, let's just stop saying he discovered North America. Because did he really discover it anyway? Even this lucky moron, did he really discover it? No. No, he didn't. Who discovered it? All the people who were living there. So stop saying he discovered it. Just say, hey, Christopher Columbus, first white guy that showed up, right? That's basically it. Christopher Columbus, first white guy that showed up, all right? And I'm not going to go into it anymore. It's, anyway, okay. Ancient Greeks. Let's talk back on ancient Greeks. My point being, after all of this, is that ancient Greeks, they were wrong about a lot of stuff, but they were right about the size and shape of the Earth. Okay? So they're good on that. They're wrong about almost everything else. So let's talk about